Hi everyone and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you are new to my channel. So we're going to continue on with the horror movies from 1980 as part of my overall 1980s horror movie series here. So the movie we're going to talk about today is definitely one that stands on its own. It's a movie that's pretty hard to rate actually, or recommend, but I'm going to do my best with this review here. And that movie, of course, is from 1980, directed by Ruggero Deodato. You know it, Cannibal Holocaust, which I do have a very nice edition of it here from Grindhouse Releasing Blu-ray. Basically, it's a 3-disc collection, 2 Blu-rays and a CD. So I get the soundtrack on the CD here, and if I open this up, there's the CD, and then here's the just kind of show this off here. There's the 2 discs. One, of course, is the featurette, and the other one is full of special features and extras, which this edition is chock full of. It's also got a booklet here. I'm not gonna spend too much time showing all of that, but as far as the special features go, high definition digital restoration of the original director's cut, spectacular digital stereo remix, and original mono mix commentary tracks with Ruggero Deodato, Robert Kerman, and stars Carl York and Francesca Cerardi. New depth interviews with all of them, beautiful 24-page booklet that I talked about, extensive still galleries and theatrical trailers. So it is a very nice, if you're going to get Cannibal Holocaust in your collection, I think this is the one to get. And then, like I said, there's the CD here too. So just kind of wanted to show that off a little bit before we really get into the nuts and bolts here of this movie review. But yeah, Cannibal Holocaust from Grindhouse Releasing. I can't remember what I paid for this. I think it was a few bucks, but to add to my collection. But as the tagline said, the one that goes all the way, and it's also got a warning on here: due to its shocking and violent subject matter, no one under 17 should view this film. And I know plenty of people over 17 that I'm not sure would view this film or should view this film. So let's just go ahead and get into the movie Cannibal Holocaust here. Cannibal Holocaust is a 1980 Italian cannibal film. I would also describe it as a documentary style found footage as well. But a 1980 Italian cannibal film directed by Ruggero Deodato and written by Gianfranco Clerici, and it stars Robert Kerman as Harold Monroe, an anthropologist who leads a rescue team into the Amazon rainforest to locate a crew of filmmakers that have gone missing while filming a documentary on local cannibal tribes. The treatment of this footage, which is noted for its visual realism, innovated the found footage style of filmmaking that has later popularized in American cinema by the Blair Witch Project. Cannibal Holocaust was filmed primarily on location in the Amazon rainforest of Colombia, with a cast of indigenous tribes interacting with mostly inexperienced American and Italian actors recruited in New York City. So basically, the movie opens in 1979. An American film crew disappeared in the Amazon rainforest while filming a documentary about indigenous cannibal tribes. The team comprises of director Alan Yates, scriptwriter Faye Daniels, and 2 cameramen, Jack Anders and Mark Tomaso. Harold Monroe, an anthropologist at New York University, agrees to lead a rescue mission in hopes of finding the missing filmmakers. In anticipation of his arrival, military personnel stationed in the rainforest conduct a raid on the local Yakumi tribe and take a young man hostage to negotiate with the natives. Monroe flies in via float plane and is introduced to the guides, Chaco and his assistant Miguel. After several days of trekking through the jungle, the rescue team encounters the Yakimo. They arrange the release of their hostage in exchange for being taken to the Yakimo village. Once there, the group is initially greeted with hostility and learns that the filmmakers caused great unrest among the people. The next day, Monroe and his guides head deeper into the rainforest to locate two wearing Indo-cannibal tribes of of Yanomamo, and Shamatari. I don't know. I'm butchering, I'm sure. They encounter a group of Shamatari warriors and follow them to a riverbank where Monroe's team saves a small group of Yanomamo Yanomamo from death. The Yanomamo invite them back to their village in gratitude, but they are still suspicious of the foreigners. Monroe bathes naked in a river to gain their trust, where the group of Yanomamo women join him. The women lead Monroe from the river to a shrine, where he discovers the skeletal remains of the filmmakers with their film reels nearby. Shocked by what he sees, he confronts the Yanomamo in the village, where he plays music from a tape recorder. The intrigued natives agree to trade it for reels of film. Sorry, I got a little wordy there with all that premise and setup of Cannibal Holocaust. As far as the cast goes, we have Robert Kerman as Professor Harold Monroe, Carl Gabriel York as Alan Yates, Lucia Giorgi Barbesci as Mark Tomaso, and Francesca Sadar Chiardi as Faye Daniels. I'm sure I'm butchering every name known to man in this review, so I apologize for that. But yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for Cannibal Holocaust, directed by Ruggero Deodato from 1980. Now, where do I start on this movie? It was actually released in Italy in 1980. I don't think it was released in the United States till like 83, 84, 85, somewhere. It was years after the original release in Italy, but it is a 1980 Italian horror film. Like I said, you can chalk this into about three different subgenres: found footage, documentary style, and Italian cannibal film. With that being said, this movie has a life all of its own. Let's just get into it, starting with the things that I like about this movie. I really like the structure of the movie, where it starts out as this more documentary mystery style, as the group with this anthropologist go and try to find these missing filmmakers. And then as the movie goes on, they watch the film reels that they were able to get from this tribe. And it's showing exactly what happened via found footage style, very early found footage. Just an overall very effective way to present this overall story, and in a way that has the most impact, I think, for this movie. So yeah, the documentary and mystery style in the first half, and then the found footage style that basically goes throughout the second half as they're watching these reels. It's a very well shot movie, especially the overhead camera shots of the Amazon River, Amazon forest, really beautiful. Has some really nice camera techniques used via early found footage that really adds to the realism of this movie. I really like the overall story and message that this movie has, from the understanding, or lack thereof, of the more civilized people like the West, and the thought process that they have towards the more tribal and less civilized part of society, and the consequences that come of that from basically their ignorance in a lot of ways. They're just basically treating these tribal people like they're not people, treating them like they're animals, like they're second or even third class citizens of the planet, frankly. While also showing the civilized people can be just as inhumane and cruel as a result, as they perceive the more tribal people to be. I just thought that was brilliant. A brilliant way to present this movie, and that as the professor poses at the very end of the movie before the ending credits, I'm not sure. He basically says, "I'm not sure who the real cannibals are," meaning that I think what it's really trying to say is that all humanity, no matter how civilized or uncivilized, we're all capable, unfortunately, of treating each other in very inhumane and cruel ways, and just you know, it's just very well presented the way the movie does it here. It's just brilliant, as I said. The movie also has a really effective score that stands out in a really impactful way. Well, it's not really a horror or suspenseful type of score, but nonetheless, it's a very haunting score in the way that it goes along with what you're seeing and experiencing on screen. So if you've seen the movie, the score is very sort of, it's more of a beautiful score, more of I don't know how you would describe it, but in a weird way, it kind of fits with the movie. Like I said, it's not a horror score, it's not a suspenseful score. Um, it does have sort of a beautiness to it, but not entirely. Yeah, it's really hard to describe, but it's one of the more complex scores of any horror movie that I've ever seen, and I think it's really effective for this movie. It definitely stands out as a very much a pro in this movie. Um, Overall, you really just can't ignore the impact or the legacy that this movie has on so many different things, from multiple excuse me, from multiple horror subgenres like the found footage mostly and the documentary style filmmaking, all the way to movies being banned in the video nasties list, which this one's pretty much on top of, to the marketing of this movie, and how they had the cast of characters in this movie. The filmmakers sign a not a non-compete. What do you call it? They basically had them sign a contract where they were to disappear for the next year and not be shown or be seen or be involved in any other projects or any other movies, to make this movie have much more of an impact. What do you call those? Why can't I think of the name of it? I keep wanting to say a non-compete agreement, but that's not what it is. The hell with it. I don't know. It was brilliant marketing, all the way down to the fact that this movie brought murder charges on the director. It stands apart from all other movies, and it stands on its own in a very huge and impactful way. That's the best way to describe this movie. Regardless of how hard it is to watch, and believe me, it is hard to watch. And we'll get to that in a minute here, but you can't deny, even if you're somebody that doesn't like this movie, you can't deny the impact that it's had on the world, frankly. You could argue from both positive and from negative aspects of society, but one of the most impactful movies that's ever been made, for sure. And then finally, my final pro is the directing by Ruggero Deodato is fabulous in this movie, and the reason for that is the amount of realism that this movie has. It's like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like Last House on the Left. But I think it's even more impactful than those movies from a realism standpoint. This really does feel like you're watching a snuff movie for large parts of this movie. And Ruggero Deodato is just his directing of this movie and how he made it and how he wanted it to come across is just brilliant. So this movie, from a technical standpoint, rates very high. As far as an entertainment standpoint, we've got something else to talk about here. So let's get into they're not so much cons. I mean, some of them are, but there's really not cons to this movie from a technical or structural standpoint or story standpoint, or even acting standpoint. It's more of a warning. And if you've seen this movie, you know, and if you haven't seen this movie and you've heard, you know that there'll be a warning coming at some point in this review. This movie's brutal, man. The brutality of this movie, everything from real animal deaths on screen, and yes, I did watch the uncut theatrical version. There is another version with this edition that takes out the animal cruelty scene. So if you're somebody that really gets triggered by animal cruelty, but you want to watch this movie, I can't speak for all the editions out there, but this edition from Grindhouse Releasing, it does have a version of the film that takes out the animal cruelty, so just know that. But it's a brutal movie otherwise, from the real animal deaths to graphic scenes of rape and murder to very gory sequences of both animal and human remains and insides being ripped apart and eaten. It's graphic is the best word to describe this movie. It's just graphic. Now, for me, it's not a very rewatchable movie, much like I mentioned about something like Last House on the Left, or the movie I reviewed earlier in this 1980 horror film series, Don't Go Into the House. It's a movie I'm going to watch about once every 3 years, if I'm being honest with you. This really isn't my brand of horror, even though I can really appreciate how they made it and how impactful it is and the legacy that it has. That doesn't mean it's a movie I'm going to grab on a Saturday night with friends and say, hey, I know how we can have a good time. Let's watch Cannibal Holocaust. It's just not that kind of movie. But so yeah, it's not a highly rewatchable movie for me. Maybe once every 3 years or so at best, as I said. This is less of a scary or creepy horror movie than it is more of a disturbing, unsettling, shocking exploitation movie, cannibal exploitation movie. Which, again, that's another horror subgenre that you can describe this movie with. This movie fits into like 4 or 5 different horror subgenres, frankly. But I wouldn't say it's a scary movie, unless, of course, you're one of the characters involved in the movie. It's scary what's going on screen, but from like a horror standpoint, it's not necessarily scary, but it is horrific and unsettling with what they show. Because as the movie said, they don't hold anything back. This one goes all the way for sure. So, much more of a shocking exploitation movie. But with all that being said, I'm going to rate this movie, and I had to think about this, but I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because I just don't think, as hard as it is to watch in certain scenes and moments, you can't sell it short, its impact and its legacy that it has on so many different things that I described in my prose there. I mean, it is one of the most impactful, talked about, banned, disturbing movies that have ever been put to film, frankly. And I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10, mostly for that, but also the fact that it is a very well-made movie, just like Martyrs, which is another movie that it's a watch every 2 to 3 years for me, and I actually don't own that movie in my collection at this point. But from a technical standpoint, it's very well done. But from an entertainment standpoint, I'm not going to put it on often. So 8.5 out of 10 for Cannibal Holocaust. Go ahead and comment down below for those that have seen this movie or heard about this movie, what your thoughts are overall on it. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this continued 1980 horror movie review series. Or so you don't miss any of my other upcoming horror content on my channel the rest of this year and into next year. So with that being said, would I recommend this movie? I'd only recommend it if you're somebody that's really watched a lot of horror movies. You've watched some pretty gory horror movies, some pretty violent horror movies. I mean, this is definitely not a movie that I would recommend to somebody that's starting out in horror and, watched Gremlins or The Gate, and then they're going to reach for the Cannibal Holocaust after that. I wouldn't do that. I think you're somebody that really has to be invested in horror and kind of know what you're getting into, because this movie's not going to be for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's very disturbing. It's very violent and gory and unsettling. So just know that going in. But with that being said, thank you for watching this review. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're enjoying this overall 1980s horror review series. And as always, stay scared. Bye.